Welcome CSE 121 W1, and we're going to work on exercise 5, which is going to be test scores loop. We're going to be continuing our test scores that we've been working on, and we're going to make it more efficient by using a loop. We'll try out a for loop and a while loop. Now, if you go into the playlist, watch the videos on for loops and while loop, and there's 2 videos on while loop here, so we're going to try both. There's certain situations where one is better than the other. While loop will work if we want to just stop it, if we want to find a way to stop it, which we might if we're entering grades. And for loop will set it up for a number of times. So we're going to look at it both ways. So we're going to do like a 5A and a 5B. 5A will be a for loop and 5B will be a while loop. So we're going to do that with our test scores. So let's get back to our test scores, and I'm going to open up the last one that I did, so make sure you did these, the one that I had 4C test scores counter. Now I'm going to fork this, and this is the one that had all the different copied, pasted input prompts. And we could keep entering them, and it worked out okay with the counter, but it was hard to keep track of them, and it's a lot of copying and pasting. And if we had to change something, we'd have to change it 5 times, and that's just with 5 assignments. If we had 20 assignments, we'd have to change it 20 times. So that's not very efficient. So we're going to go in here and we're going to fork this thing. So we're going to go to the 3 dots and we're going to fork it, and we're going to call it 5A, and we'll call it test scores, and I'll just call it for loop for now. Now we're still going to use a counter, but we're going to throw a for loop in there, and I'll keep my initials on here. So I'll fork it, and here it is. And I'm going to close this up because I don't need those files, and I'll move this over a little bit so when I output you can see it a little bit better. I'm going to remove all but the one input pair. So I'm going to go down here, remove all of these, keep our output the same. There's our output, and I'm going to keep our input here. Now, we're only going to have one input at the end because we're going to be averaging all these up. But our input that we're doing multiple times, what I'm going to do is put that in a for loop. So I'm going to go up here right above this and just put for I in range. And I'm going to put parentheses and put a colon and hit enter. Now, when I do that, when I put a colon enter, it knows to indent this because this is going to be inside that block, inside that for statement. So that's going to be in there, and so will these. So to move these over, you could just highlight these and just tab them over. And I'll stretch this out a little bit so they're all in one line at least right now. And we have everything in there. So what's going to happen within this loop, and we're going to have to put in a integer here. So I'm going to put in maybe 3 times to start. We'll do it 3 times. We'll keep it simple to start until we start building up. And what this means, this I means it's an iterator, and if you watch the videos, you'll see that all explained, but it's basically a variable that's kind of created. If you've ever worked with a JavaScript for loop, it basically makes a variable named I, and it increments it, and it gives you a condition. Well, in this one, it's kind of shorter. It just says I in range 3, meaning it's just going to use it 3 times. So it's going to iterate 3 times. Everything inside this block is going to iterate 3 times. So it's less code. That's the nice thing about Python. So we're going to indent everything here instead of curly braces, and we're going to see what happens. We're going to run this 3 times and see if things still work. This should be pretty easy. Let's try it out. Now it says enter A1 points. I'll keep doing the 10, 9 thing just to keep it simple. And then 9. And then A2, it's asking me for the possible. And then I'll go 8. And then for A3, it's asking me for the possible. I'll go 10, and I'll do 7. And it's giving me an 80% on 4 assignments. Well, let's see what happened here. I did do 3 assignments. It's telling me 4. So what's happening here is because it's adding up at the end, it's incrementing at the end, it's adding up after I do the 3rd one and giving that a 4 assignment. But everything else is working out because it should be an 80%. A 9, 8, and 7. It should average out to 8 out of 10, which is an 80%, so that works okay. And then also, I want to separate these, so I'll put a backspace N in here so that they all break up. And let's try, well, there's different things we could do. You could go in here and this ending thing and say, oh, well, if it's always off by 1, let's just do assignment minus 1. But that's not very efficient. Why are you doing that? Maybe we should try putting this in front of it. So we'll cut this and try putting it in the beginning. It'll still start at 1. Well, actually, let's say we put it at 0, It starts at 0. Maybe we should do that. Start it at 0 because that would still make it 2. If it was 1 and then we put that here, it would become 2 before we even started. So we'll put it at 0 just like the other ones, except now when it gets here, it'll put in 1 because it'll increment right away. Once the loop starts, it'll increment. It'll be A1. So that should work. And it shouldn't increment afterwards. So it shouldn't add to it. So let's see what that does. And we'll go 10. Now notice it did put a line break here, but that's okay. So it did put a line break before it starts. I'll put 10, 9, and then 10, 8, and then 10, 7. And it's 80% for 3 assignments. So that works out okay. That works good. So no matter how many we do, that'll work out. So we don't have to put assignment -1 in here. So that works pretty good for our assignment. So that was a lot quicker and a lot easier than copying and pasting all those. So if we wanted to do 20 of these, we just have to do, or let's say 5. Let me just put 5 in here, but obviously we could do 20, we could do 30. Let's just see how that works. So I'll run through this real quick. So 10, 9, 10, 8, 10, 7, 10, 6, 10, 5. Now before I hit enter, it should do 70 because that's kind of the median range here. It's in the middle. So it should average out to 70 when we do this with a 9 through 5. It should use that middle number. That's why I did 5 here. So let's see how that works. 70%, 5 assignments, it's working. So that's pretty easy. That for loop worked pretty well. And what we'll do next is we'll try a while loop, which will allow us to have it go on. Instead of putting a range in 5 times, 20 times, whatever, it'll allow us to kind of stop it when we want it. So I'm going to do that next. So this is 5A. Now you don't have to submit this yet because these will both be part of exercise 5. So we could put both links in there if you want. We could do this as part of 5, so we don't have to do them as separate assignments. And we'll move on now to the while loop. But let me take a break here and we'll come back and we'll do the while loop so that we could stop it and put in a little code word to end it. So that'll be in, I guess, part 2. That'll be considered 5B. So we'll fork this again and make it a 5B just so it's a different repel.